Hello you beautiful humans of the internet, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Amy and today I'm going to be talking about my fourth and final ayahuasca ceremony. Yes, this video is a long one, so if you're here and you're watching it, then thank you so much. I appreciate you. Hopefully you guys have a bit more time in your hands during this isolation time. So in this video you can expect to hear about my fourth ceremony and a little bit on celestial surgery, which is something that can happen to on ayahuasca. You can basically have a sacred surgery by beings or aliens or, you know, creatures. It can be all of the above. So that is a really interesting concept that I thought I would touch on in this video later on. If you guys want to see a whole video on celestial surgery and me explaining it further, then let me know down below because I'd be happy to talk about that. I think around 70% of the people who were there on my retreat actually had a celestial surgery happen to them. So that was really interesting to hear about everyone's experiences, and I'd be happy and totally down to go more into detail about that because I just think it is the most fascinating concept. And when I heard about it the first time, I was blown away. I was like, how is this real? And I also briefly touch on some other people's experiences that were at my retreat. I also talk about moon cycles and a female's time of the month in this video because in shamanic traditions they see it very differently to how a lot of Westerners see it, and it's a very ceremonial time of the month. So that is why this video is a long one. I definitely talk about a few different things, but I hope you guys enjoy it nonetheless. And I did film a little bit while I was there, so do expect a Costa Rica vlog coming very soon on this channel. I film a little bit at the retreat. I actually remember filming after my first ceremony. I haven't looked at that footage yet, so that'll be very interesting. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are in this big wide world. Sorry this has been a long introduction, but I just thought I would mention why it's a long video and what I talk about in it so you can know what to expect. There's a lot jam-packed in one video, I understand. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and all that good stuff, and ring the bell to be notified when I upload new videos so you don't miss my Costa Rica vlog. That is all. Let's get into it. You know when my light stopped working? The plug had just come out of the wall socket, so I've plugged it back in. Let there be light. We're ready to go again. Also, we've got someone new joining me for this video. My little baby is sleeping right behind and looking cuter than ever. Without further ado, let's keep getting onto the video. From what I remember, we were up to night 4, which is the final night of ceremony. This night was very interesting for me because I had a little bit of a surprise that I was not expecting. I'm going to start with what I wrote in my journal the day of the 4th night of ceremony. I wrote, "Tonight is the 4th and final ceremony. I'm feeling scared, nervous and anxious about it, mainly because it is an all-night ceremony and the brew is different." So on this night they have a different brew. It's a Colombian tradition and the brew is called yahe. It is still an ayahuasca brew, but it is said to be a little bit stronger and thicker and more purgative, so there's more purging going on. So I was very nervous about this night, and the fact that the last 3 nights of ceremony had felt so long, and those ceremonies went from 5:30 till like 1:30 a.m. whereas this night went from 7:30 p.m. till 10 a.m. the next morning. This was a very, very long ceremony and I was just like very apprehensive, but I also was excited because I felt like I hadn't really gotten too much the first 3 nights, and I felt like because the medicine's stronger, it's a longer ceremony, apparently it's a lot more intense. This was like the Colombian night where Mitra, who's the Colombian shaman, came with his whole crew and they were like hosting this all-night ceremony. So I was like mixed emotions. I was nervous, but I was also excited because I thought maybe this is my night, and I was talking to a few people and they were saying like, this could be your night. You haven't gotten too much insights and stuff like that the first 3 nights, but you can get all of your intentions in one night. Like, it can happen. And so I was quite excited, but this is also my last chance for all of this to happen. I wrote, "I've heard it is stronger and more purgative. The ceremonies already feel long and this one is really long, so I'm scared it's going to feel like it will last forever. My intention tonight is going to be, please allow me to be willing to trust and surrender, and please show me what I need to see gently. Even though the ceremonies feel long, the week has gone super quickly. My fear is wanting me to not participate in ceremony, but I'm trying to trust that that is more reason to go. Also trying to focus on the sense of accomplishment I'll feel after all the ceremonies are done." So that's what I wrote on the Thursday, and the day progressed and I was getting like excited and anxious and all a mix of the emotions for the final night of ceremony. And basically with this ceremony, if you have your time of the month or your moon cycle, for the first 3 nights you can participate in ceremony. You're allowed to drink the medicine, you're allowed to be present. According to the Colombian tradition, they take this very, very seriously, and if you are on your moon cycle, you are not allowed to participate in ceremony, you're not allowed to drink the medicine, you're not even allowed to be like anywhere near the ceremonial space. This is because they believe that the power of a woman on her moon cycle is 10 times more powerful than the shaman. So you can actually make the shaman purge and like throw out the energy of the room, which has kind of made me see my time of the month in a completely new light. I think a lot of people in the West, especially like a lot of guys, are like, ew, like periods, like they get all like grossed out about it. And I really loved how they see it in these traditions. They see it as a ceremony in itself. Every month the woman goes through her moon cycle, which is a ceremony, and it's seen as a huge release and a purge in itself. And according to the tradition, they even have like a certain way to work with your moon cycle, and each day you pray and meditate over a certain different area of your life. If you guys want to see a video on that, I can make a whole video on that and what the shamans told me on how to like work with your moon cycle, because I thought that was really interesting and really insightful, and it just kind of added a deeper meaning to that time of the month. I mean, that time of the month can be uncomfortable and unpleasant and emotional and painful, and I guess in their culture, like, that is seen as a purge. It's such a release, and I can totally understand how they see it like that. So anyway, I went on a tangent there, but you'll understand why I talked about that in a second. So before I went to Rhythmia, pretty much my time of the month was regular to the day for the last few years. The month before I went to Rhythmia, it came a week early. And then I was like, oh no, am I gonna have my time of the month at Rhythmia? Because I knew that you couldn't participate in certain ceremonies. And I did the math and I was like, okay, no, it's all good. I will get through the whole week of ceremonies and then my time of the month will come a week later. Turns out it came a week early, and 10 minutes before Thursday night ceremony, I was literally getting ready and my moon cycle comes. I can't even begin to explain the amount of disappointment and frustration that I felt in this moment, especially because I felt like I hadn't really gotten much from the first 3 nights. I think if I felt like I'd gotten my miracle, you know, gone really deep with the medicine the first 3 nights, this wouldn't have affected me as much as it actually did. But I felt so frustrated because I'd spent so much time and energy and money flying to the other end of the world, you know, taking time off work, not getting paid. I really felt like I'd put so much energy and time into preparing myself for this experience and even going into this experience, and I felt really frustrated in this moment that that was it. That was my week, and I didn't really feel like I had any intentions met. I didn't really feel like I got much out of it. I'm not saying it was a bad time, because I had a good time. I felt peaceful, and weirdly enough, by the end of the week, I was like, I wanted to purge. I wanted to feel something and for stuff to come up so I could heal, because I felt like there was so much stuff I felt like needed healing. But obviously that wasn't Mother Ayahuasca's plan for me, and I guess my intention of learning how to trust and asking her to help me trust is very, very apparent to me now, that she is teaching me how to trust in a very subtle way, but also in a way of, instead of throwing me in the deep end and having a very intense experience where I almost have to like surrender to it, she's done like complete opposite and given me a very light experience and being like, okay, well, you need to trust the fact that that's best for you, because, you know, you were expecting all this crazy stuff to happen and all this big stuff to come up that you could heal, but really it was the complete opposite. And I think that's her way of showing me how to trust, and I feel like it's just obviously meant to be for me. It doesn't mean that I'm like, I've gotten to a point of complete acceptance with it. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest, I still feel a bit disappointed. I still feel frustrated. I think if I hadn't spent so much money on this week, if it was like a much cheaper experience, I wouldn't feel as crappy as I felt about it, because like, I'm talking like I spent half my life savings on this week, and I kind of left feeling a little bit disappointed. But I do know I was in the minority of people there who had this experience. I think out of 98 of us, there were 3 of us who didn't get their profound miracle or like deep insight. So 95 out of 98 people got their miracle. And before I went to Rhythmia, I was like, what if I'm that 3% that, you know, that doesn't have that experience? And I feel like that happened to me. I don't know if I manifested it. I don't really understand. I don't know how that came about, but I was unfortunately part of that 3% that didn't have that profound life-changing experience. So I left my room and I went to one of the shamans who was setting up, they were all setting up ceremony. And I spoke to her and I told her, I just got my time of the month, it's a week early, like I'm feeling really sad. She basically said, you know, meditate under the moon and do, you know, she told me some things to do for that evening. She was like, these are the perimeters, like you're not allowed anywhere near this space, because apparently if a woman like gets her time of the month in the ceremony, the Colombian ceremony, they like take the mattress and move it like far away from people, because the energy is just way too powerful, which is something I had no idea about to this extent. ceremony came around, my roommates went to ceremony and I stayed in my room and then I got dinner this night because the previous nights when you have ceremony you don't eat after like 2:30 in the afternoon, you kind of fast up until ceremony, and this night I got to have dinner, which is kind of exciting, but I was feeling really disappointed. Although weirdly enough I did have a really good night in a very different way. So that week the guest speaker at Rhythmia was Shaman Durek, who is a spirit shaman, and his girlfriend is the Princess of Norway and I basically ended up having dinner with Shaman Durek and the Princess of Norway, which was a really cool experience within itself. I mean, I was sad I didn't get to participate in the ceremony, but I also got to have a really amazing time with them and have dinner. He contacted my spirit guides and passed on some messages, so that was really cool in itself. If you guys want to see a video on that and my experience with him, and he did some work on me, then I'm happy to share that experience as well. So it wasn't a complete disappointment. I had a really good night. I had dinner with them and a few other girls who also had their moon cycles, so they couldn't participate either. It was a good time and I got a good night's sleep. I had my room to myself. No one was snoring, so that was kind of nice, and maybe that's what I needed. They say that ayahuasca gives you what you need and not what you want, so maybe that's what I needed. Even though I wanted to participate in ceremony, obviously that wasn't meant to be and that wasn't right for me, and yet again she was showing me how to trust. I guess what I've taken from all of that and the whole week is like I have to trust, because life does not go the way you expect it to. Curveballs are thrown at you from every which way. Your expectations don't always get met, and that is totally fine. And I honestly do feel like I trust that the universe is taking care of things, and I just need to let go. And it is hard. It is definitely hard when you have disappointment, when you feel like you've sacrificed a lot to be there and you don't really get that profound life-changing miracle, or you don't get really any messages or any intentions met. That was like a pretty hard pill to swallow, but I am just at the moment just focusing on trusting that there is a reason for everything, which I do strongly believe, and sometimes it is a hard pill to swallow, and in this case it has been, and that's just the way it was meant to be for me. So that kind of sums up my 4 nights of ayahuasca ceremonies, or 3 nights. I didn't do the 4th night. Actually, before I go, the next morning they told us, all of us girls who had our moon cycles, to meet there at 7 AM after the sun had risen, and then we could join the closing ceremony, like the closing talk. We ended up waiting a while, like outside of the ceremony space, like quite far outside, and the ceremony went till like 9:30, 10 AM, so it was a long ceremony, and it was very interesting being completely sober, not on the medicine, like watching things play out. People could come outside, so we could see if anyone came outside, we could kind of see them, and it was really interesting. I almost felt like, you know, when you're like the sober one at the party and everyone's really drunk and you see so much more stuff than you would usually and you pick up on so much. That was me this morning. People were like doing handstands and climbing rocks and dancing and singing and laughing and hugging, and like it was all happening, and I was just like watching from a distance, kind of wishing to be a part of it, but also kind of like, this is really entertaining. Is that what I've looked like the whole week? But I think as well, the part of me that felt left out and that wanted to be a part of that is something I do feel a lot in my everyday life, and I think that that's really what Mother Ayahuasca was teaching me, and I really had to feel that. Oh, I completely forgot about the snoring. Oh my gosh, how did I forget about the snoring? So so remember I told you that my roommate on the first night on the Sunday was snoring? Okay, so that happened and it triggered me, like it made me feel really frustrated. Then on Tuesday night in ceremony, there was one person snoring in ceremony, and they happened to be on the mattress next to me, but I wasn't gonna do anything about it. Like, they were in their journey, but they were like snoring really loudly, and I could feel it was making me feel really frustrated. Then on Wednesday night, I'm lying in my mattress, and the guy in the mattress opposite me didn't take any ayahuasca because he felt like he had all his intentions met the night before. Like, he was like, I feel like I've gotten everything out of it I need to. I healed my family, I healed myself. So he didn't take any medicine, so he literally fell asleep like within 5 minutes of the ceremony. He just had like a good little nap. And he was opposite me, and he was snoring. So I felt like literally everywhere I went, like people were snoring. And I was talking to a few people there about this, and we were like laughing about it, being like, I think ayahuasca is like trying to teach me like tolerance for snoring or patience or something like that, because it kept happening like everywhere I went. And then on the Friday night and the Saturday night, my roommate was snoring like non-stop. I put my headphones in my ears on full volume, could still hear her snoring, and like I could feel like the frustration rising. So that was just really interesting. And in my head I was like, out of all things like that could have come up this week, like that is like ayahuasca is like teaching me tolerance to snorers. Like, really? Like, out of everything that could come up, like that's what you've chosen? Like, I was kind of confused and baffled, but also like had a bit of a laugh about this, because I was like, that's just like funny and random. I don't know, I feel like it wasn't just a coincidence, and they say like there's no such thing as a coincidence. Like, there's a reason for everything, and I feel like snorers kept getting put near me for some weird reason. I don't understand it, but I think she was teaching me a big lesson in tolerance for snoring and snorers, because they seemed to kind of find me wherever I went. So that was a little side note. And the last thing I just wanted to share is, not only did I hear stories of so many people who healed throughout the week, but there was one that stood out to me. A lot of people who've worked with ayahuasca will say the only way out is through. And this is something I've talked about when it comes to mental health, and the fact that the longer we run and avoid our problems, the greater they get, and the only way to kind of work through things is to go through them. The longer you suppress or avoid, it just makes things worse. And as scary as it can be, that is like the way to get through all your trauma and all your shit, is to go right through it and feel it to its maximum capacity, so that then you can let it go. And this just reminds me of one woman who was there the week I went, and on the day after the first ceremony, I asked her, I was like, how was your evening? And she was like crying and very just not in a good place. She told me that she'd experienced her own death twice the night before, and she was like, I died twice last night and it was the scariest thing ever. And she was crying, and she really was not having a good time on the Tuesday and didn't want to go to ceremony the next night. And after talking to the shamans and stuff, they kind of encouraged her and said, you know, no two nights are the same. Just because you had that experience, you don't want to like leave and have that be your last experience. You know, you could have the best night of your life tonight and have a full rebirth, because usually when you experience your own death, there's a rebirth that follows. And this woman was so brave. She continued throughout the whole week and did all the other ceremonies. And on Wednesday night, I remember when we were all dancing together, I looked over and she was dancing and singing and having the best time. Like, you could just see it written all over her face and her body, and was obviously having some sort of rebirth or something. And later that week, she literally said that she had like the best week of her life. And I just feel like this is such a metaphor for life in general. Like, you can go through the hardest times, and she literally experienced her own death twice on Monday. 2 nights later, she was having like a rebirth and dancing and singing and like living her best life. And it just shows that whatever comes up is meant to come up. And even though it can be really, really hard at times, like life and ayahuasca ceremonies, if you push through it and you keep going, you will come out on the other side. And she said she had the best week of her life and the most healing and profound week she's ever had. So yeah, I just wanted to end with that little story because I thought it was really beautiful. I just feel like that's such a metaphor for life. The only way out is through. Don't suppress your stuff, don't push it down, just feel, allow yourself to feel. Your feelings are coming up for a reason. Sit with it, sit with those emotions and push through, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel, not only with ayahuasca ceremonies, but in life and with mental health and all that sort of stuff that I talk about on my channel. Just know that there is light on the other side, and it does get better. And I've experienced this firsthand, not necessarily in ayahuasca ceremonies, but in general. If you push through your stuff and you go through it and you allow yourself and give yourself the time and the space to feel what you've got to feel, then you will come out the other side a stronger and wiser human being, and someone who is not as easily knocked down by life, because life can be bloody hard sometimes. Like, life is not easy, and we just have to keep pushing, keep moving through, and keep doing our little thing, our little human thing in this short human life that we have. So yeah, I think that wraps up this very, very long chatty video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know a lot of you are probably expecting some crazy, like, oh my gosh, I went to this dimension and aliens did this on me, like crazier stuff. But as you guys have seen and heard, my experience was quite subtle, but it was still beautiful, it's still blissful. The ceremonies were absolutely amazing. Like, they were just the most beautiful things to be a part of, and I feel super blessed that I got to witness that and be a part of such a beautiful vibe. Also, a very random side note, but I'm not going to get too into it. I can make a whole video on celestial surgery if you want me to talk more about it, but it's something that can happen when you take ayahuasca, and you can basically have celestial surgery, which is when like a being or something works on you and does surgery on your body during a ceremony. It sounds absolutely crazy, but I saw firsthand that a lot of people had, actually a very large majority of the people who went there that week had celestial surgery done to them. They healed like back pain, depression, like all sorts of stuff. And they say like 73% of people who go to arrhythmia actually end up having some sort of celestial surgery that week. So that was something I didn't experience, but I might experience one day. I just thought I would mention it because it's fascinating. You can look it up and like watch videos of people who are talking about their experiences who have gone through that. So that concludes this video. That sums up my ayahuasca experience. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to comment down below. I'd love to open a discussion up on your thoughts, queries, questions, comments, concerns, any of that. By the end of the week, we literally became like a soul family. It was beautiful. There were grown men crying and hugging each other. All of us just felt so connected, and it was honestly a beautiful week. Oh, and if you guys want to follow my Instagram, it's at AmyGrace with 3 E's. I posted a bunch of photos of the retreat and my journey and experience in Costa Rica. I post a lot more on there than I do on YouTube, so if you want to see more of my face, which I don't know if you do, but if you do, that's where you can find me. So on that note, I hope you're all having a beautiful day wherever you are in this big wide world in which we live in. And don't forget to be kind to each other and be kind to yourself. I'm sending lots of love and light your way, and I hope you're having a beautiful day. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but I rhyme all the time. And I will catch you guys very soon in my next video. Bye!